Thank you so much for coming out tonight, for showing up. It's a beautiful evening out there. So we're really glad that you're here and you're joining us. And I wanted to say a special thank you to Kristen because this is the third, as you know, this is the third seminar in the Women's Health series that Kristen has put together. This is one of her many brainchilds and projects that she's created. And I'm so grateful to her that she's created this platform for us to come together and have good dialogue and discussion and learning. And it's just so important for us to be coming together this way as women, as a community, and especially now more than ever when there's just so much going on in the world. So thank you, Kristen, for inviting me and for setting this all up. It's wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And welcome, everybody. So for those of you, some of you I know, for those of you I don't know, I'm Cree Lambeck. I'm a registered psychotherapist and a teacher and a mom of 3 great kids, and I live here locally in Dundas. And as a mental health counselor, I spend a couple of days a week, so I work part-time with the Hamilton Family Health Team, providing mental health services for patients in a physician's clinic downtown in Hamilton. And then the other half of the week, I'm working in private practice, Cherry Tree Counseling. And my area of clinical interest and training is in perinatal mood and mental health concerns and maternal mental health. So tonight's topic, as you can see from the PowerPoint slide here, is maternal mental health matters. And so tonight we're going to spend some time talking about unlocking and understanding PMADs and general women's wellness and mental health. Okay, so Kristen went over some of the housekeeping, which I really appreciate. And again, if you have questions, feel free to write those into the chat. As Kristen mentioned, you can share them anonymously with just me. It's so important that this space is safe and feels good for people. And if it's something more public, then feel free to share those with everybody, okay? If you hear something that you really like, feel free to use the little clappy hands or the thumbs up, which are just kind of fun little Zoomy things. And then we'll have lots of time for discussion in the chat at the end of the presentation as well. Okay, so just get started here. You can see on this slide an overview of some of the areas that we're going to touch on tonight. And so we're going to be talking again about what PMADs are in terms of mental health, maternal mental health. So understanding, defining, unlocking, and then getting into talking about treatment and support. Okay. So starting here, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. If you have never heard of PMADs, you are certainly not alone. And I myself had never heard the term PMAD until I started working in this niche area. So it is a really important term to define and understand, precisely because so many of us probably are not familiar with this terminology. So perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, or concerns as I like to say, which sounds a little more gentle than disorders, describe distressing feelings that occur during pregnancy and throughout the first year after pregnancy. And so that is the perinatal period. Again, that was another term I wasn't so sure of back when I had my first baby. You know, perinatal, does that mean pregnancy? Does that mean postpartum? What exactly does that mean? So perinatal means the period of pregnancy and the first year after the baby is born. Okay. So PMADs can affect women of every culture, age, income level, and ethnicity. No one is immune to this, although as we are going to talk about in part of our discussion, certain groups and women are certainly more vulnerable than others. And PMADs can appear during pregnancy or days or even months after childbirth. Often these concerns don't resolve without good treatment. And something that we probably are, a term that we are probably more familiar with and maybe have experienced as women or as moms is the baby blues. So up to 80% of women or even more will experience the baby blues, which is not to be confused with PMADs. So the baby blues affecting so many of us in those first really fragile, vulnerable weeks after delivery. So it's so incredibly common for women as their hormones are out of sync and try to rebalance as we're sleep deprived, as we're adjusting to motherhood and all of the demands that comes with it and this massive learning curve and life transition. We can go through a couple of really, really hard weeks, right? There can be lots of tears, there can be lots of ups and downs, perhaps irritability, restlessness. All of this is very, very common and described as the baby blues. When those symptoms increase in severity and duration past around that 2-week mark, that's when we start to really want to do some good screening around perinatal mood and anxiety concerns, because there might be more going on than the baby blues. And so PMADs really occur across a spectrum that affect mothers during pregnancy and postpartum. So although many of us are perhaps more familiar with the term postpartum depression, because that's sort of what comes out in the mainstream media and maybe the term we're more familiar with, postpartum anxiety and pregnancy anxiety is just as prevalent, if not more so. It's just not perhaps talked about as much. And so you can see here on this list that there is a whole spectrum of these concerns that are diagnosable in sort of the big Bible called the DSM, which is the big book of mental health disorders with the criteria for diagnoses. So tonight we're going to talk mostly about anxiety and depression, simply because those are the most common concerns in the perinatal period, but these are also other areas that may be diagnosed. And again, if anyone wants to dive deeper into any of these or we have questions, feel free to let me know, okay? Because there's so much here that we could talk about, but of course we have limited time. Okay, so this next slide just looks at some of the risk factors and etiology behind PMADs. And really, we're still learning about the causes. There's a lot that we don't know. But one pretty staggering fact that we do know is that among women, the leading cause of disease-related disability is depression. And that's from the World Health Organization, right? And again, when I say depression, that's sort of become the catchphrase, right? But there's a great deal of overlap, and often we can't sort of divide things up into these neat and tidy categories. There's so much overlap and crossover between anxiety and depression and stress that really when we're saying postpartum depression, we're including anxiety in that as well. Right? So again, whether it's changing hormone levels or changes in diet, access to care obviously is key, really, really critical. And then disparities, racial ethnic disparities, socioeconomic leaves us more vulnerable. Sleep, exhaustion, stress in our lives, lifestyle changes, the amount of support, good support that we have available to us. And then of course, expectations of the happy mother, which I talk about so often with women, with my clients, about the mommy myths, right? And so before we perhaps have our first child, you know, we may have these visions or images or expectations around what that's going to look like. Sometimes it looks like walking through the park with a latte in hand, pushing a stroller with a blissfully sleeping baby inside. And then when we get to the other side, we realize that there's a lot of things that no one told us, right? And often women will express to me, you know, why didn't someone tell me about what happens in those first few days and weeks and months postpartum, right? We don't talk about this stuff as much as we need to. And again, I'm so glad that we have communities like this one to get together and really bring some of these things out into the light. So this is one of my favorite cartoon series, and I'm just going to give you a minute just to read through it. So I just love this cartoon because, oh, thank you. Someone did the clappy hands. Yay, clappy hands. Um, I just love this cartoon because it really shows the real deal, right? And that's why I called this presentation Unlocking and Understanding. Unlocking is about learning. You know, we can hear these things, we can hear the stats, we can understand the facts, we get it, but until we've really experienced what it's like or heard from real women who have gone through these struggles, it can be really hard to understand. And I think, you know, so many of us strong, capable women, often who perhaps work in helping roles in some regard in our lives, we can find it really hard to ask for help, right? We're not used to doing that. We're used to being the ones in charge, in control, giving the help, doing everything, right? Keeping all the balls going. And it can be a real struggle to turn that around and to say, you know what? I'm not doing okay here. Right? I need some support. Momminess. So I like that one. So we're just going to spend a couple moments here on anxiety, unlocking anxiety. Because again, anxiety in pregnancy and the postpartum period is so, so, so common, right? I've never met a mom who didn't experience anxiety when she was pregnant or when she had a brand new baby who she is expected to keep alive, you know, and to help survive and thrive, right? No pressure, mom. It all falls on us. We have to feed this child, this newborn. We've never done this before. We don't have a roadmap. Some of us don't have a lot of support, right? We're not getting the rest that we need. And so it's very, very easy for that hypervigilance to take over, right? We have to sort of be scanning for danger. We have to keep this newborn safe. It is up to us to make this work, to keep this little life going. And so shutting that off can be really, really difficult. So women can experience anxiety in different ways, but of course there are some common symptoms, and I've just listed a few of them here. And I'll just make a quick note on anxiety. And for those of you who know me, you've probably heard me say this before because I'm a bit of a broken record on this, but it's just important to underscore that anxiety is normal, right? Anxiety is not something that some people have and other people don't. It's not like a cold. We all have anxiety and we need anxiety. Anxiety is our nervous system trying to keep us safe, trying to protect us by scanning for threats and danger. The difference comes in the degree of anxiety that we're experiencing. So when the stress level gets really high, like it is now during a pandemic, right, our symptoms increase and become more intense. And so the higher the anxiety on that scale, the stronger our symptoms are likely to be. And so when those symptoms are at a tolerable point, we may be able to manage quite well and move forward in our lives and do the things we need to do. However, when that anxiety creeps up or more stress is piled on, those symptoms can become so severe that they really cause so much distress and emotional pain, and they really block our way in terms of functionality and being able to move forward. So again, really, really common, and yet at the same time, when our symptoms are really creeping up and really throwing a curveball, you know, and sort of hijacking our whole day or month or year, that's the time when we need to say, you know what, I gotta do something about this, right? One more cartoon here for you. So again, really looking at the internal experience that this woman is having, and really trying to sort of connect with that, right? And a note about screening. Many women I work with tell me they were never asked, or they don't recall being asked during their pregnancy visits, during their postpartum checks, about their mental health or mood or emotional well-being. And this is related to the fact that in Canada, we at present do not have any universal screenings or guidelines in place to help and support women and to take care of women during the perinatal period. Some states do, and some states are ahead of us in this regard, but in Canada, we still don't have this. And it's something that we are lobbying for. There's a lot of wonderful work being done, which I'll talk about at the end of our presentation tonight. But right now, so many of new moms and seasoned moms' concerns are being missed because this screening piece is just not happening. And when women do, it takes a tremendous amount of courage during such a vulnerable time of life to ask a healthcare provider for some help, or to say, you know what, I'm not doing okay here, right? And so often I hear from women that when they do find that voice and they have reached out, so often their concerns have been minimized or invalidated or passed over, right? Just like in this cartoon. So women can come away feeling some confusion around, you know, is this normal? You know, everyone says this is normal. Maybe this is just part of having a baby, right? Maybe I'm just not strong enough for this. Maybe I just need to try harder. What am I not doing right? What am I missing? And of course, the anxiety just can spiral. So at this point, I just want to stop sharing the screen for a moment to show you a couple of quick video clips. So you can hear about some of these symptoms and experiences in women's own words. Shoot, sorry guys, just give me one sec here. All the boxes are right over the tab, so I'm just dragging things around to try to find what I want. Okay. Can everyone see that okay? I can't hear any of you, so all right, I got the thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, here we go.
I think the biggest myth, the biggest falsehood about motherhood after you have a baby is the postpartum piece. Nobody talks about it.
When this baby came around, I was hit by a buzz.
I noticed I was really irritable. I felt down. I was angry. I would lash out. There were a few nights where I really didn't have a wink.
It affected my relationship with my kids. It affected my relationship with my spouse. And it affected the way I interacted with my parents because I didn't want them to see what was happening.
Talking about postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, any perinatal mental illness is extremely, extremely important.
I think it's more common than we think it is, for sure.
Do not be fooled to think that it's just an individualized issue. it affects the entire family.
It's a wonderful organization, by the way, which I've got on one of the last slides, Postpartum Support International. It's worth noting that name for any women in your life who might be looking for some extra support. And so, of course, they put out these public service announcements, which are quite powerful. Now, this one specifically, this is just one more short clip. This is talking more about the anxiety piece.
I think the postpartum feelings came pretty much right away. I don't want the baby. Oh my gosh, why am I feeling like I don't want my baby? Now I'm anxious about that, and how dare I be having these thoughts? And I'm the mom. Really? You don't want your kid? I remember going, this isn't normal. Why am I so anxious about this? And I was scared to tell my husband, and then I stopped eating. I had zero appetite from the anxiety. It was just these constant thoughts that you just could not shut up in your own mind. That was part of the living hell. And it would be anything from not wanting the kid to having to make dinner to doing the laundry to she's crying again till I got to feed her, to I got to get up. My husband's coming home. People are visiting. I'm exhausted. Yeah. I talked to my friends about how I was feeling, and they just said, yeah, you need to go see a psychiatrist, maybe get on medication. I got on meds and I got more normal. Like, okay, no more anxiety. Sweet.
Okay. So we're just going to pop back into the presentation here. So again, I think those videos are just so powerful to hear about women's experiences, especially as we talk about how common these concerns are in the perinatal period. So just spending a couple moments here on depression, more specifically. Okay, so again, there are distinct differences. We covered a couple of those already between the baby blues and a more severe low mood or depression. Right? So some symptoms here that can occur during pregnancy or that fourth trimester, so that first postpartum year. Right? And the tricky part about depression is that when our mood is low, when we're feeling down, when we're feeling depressed, one of the key and most important symptoms is that we withdraw, right? We tend to isolate and sort of turtle in. Maybe we disconnect from those around us or even from activities that we normally would enjoy. So we sort of shut ourselves off. And so the paradox really of depression is that this is the time when we need to be reaching out, right? We need to be telling people how we feel, who are in our lives, who care about us, so that we can get the symptoms under control and we can get the help that we need. And again, without that treatment, so many women will struggle, for years sometimes. And often it is, women that I see, it's often a couple of years, 2 or 3 years following the postpartum period, where now they're kind of looking back. Maybe there's been complications in their pregnancy or a lot of stress. Maybe they've had a traumatic birth. Maybe there's been difficulties and stressors in the postpartum period, but they haven't had the time, space, energy, or capacity to really get the help that was needed at that time, right? Because as all of us moms know, when you're in it, when you're going through it, we don't have that space for processing. So sometimes that piece comes later when we look back and sort of ask, hey, what happened? What went on there, right? And so these symptoms can really linger for quite some time when good treatment and support isn't available. So just sharing a picture on this slide that I just happened across, and it really connected with me just because it's so real, right? So there's mom, in her messy, dark house, beautiful baby, looks so little, so innocent, right? And then look at mom's face, right? And where's mom's help? Where's her village? Where's her community to help her with what she needs? And I think too, in light of what's going on in the world today, right, with the pandemic, with the Black Lives Matter movement, right, bringing our awareness to ethnic disparity, to marginalization of people in general, especially during COVID, and trying to get access to the supports that are needed, means that everybody's experience isn't the same, right? There are groups and individuals who are much more vulnerable and at risk. And so there's some real fears about giving birth during this pandemic, right? What's going to happen, right? And some groups are at higher risk than others. Okay. And a graphic here just showing the different layers, right? Talking about what is on the surface, and then when we drill down, when we dig down, what do we find, right? So we know historically that studies show that women of color are less likely to seek mental health treatment due to cultural barriers, due to stigma surrounding mental illness. And so when we consider these topics, we need to remember there's a lot of layers of influence here, and it's not the same experience for all of us. We're not all in the same boat in terms of the care that we're able to access. Right, so I just like that one. So now I've entertained you with all of the statistics and a little learning about PMADs, about perinatal anxiety and perinatal depression and other concerns and disorders on the spectrum. And so turning now on this slide to really focus and highlight the good news about all of this. And of course, the good news is that PMADs are highly treatable, right? And now more than ever, we have resources in place. We have supports that did not exist a decade ago, even 5 years ago. The conversation is changing and moving forward. We're so fortunate here in Hamilton to have the Women's Health Concerns Clinic, which supports women across the reproductive lifespan and is covered under OHIP, all of their services. And they provide CBT groups for women in the perinatal period as well. Postpartum Support International, which was 2 of those clips that you saw in the video. Again, a wonderful source of information for moms-to-be, and dads as well. And I should also mention, although we're not focusing a lot in this area tonight, dads can get postpartum depression too. Lots of information here. There's a free texting line with clinicians who support women. There's psychiatric consultations. There's downloadables, printables, weekly chats, groups, community building, all kinds of stuff. So simply Googling Postpartum Support International will link you up to all those amazing resources. Postpartum doulas, of course, are wonderful to help families in those really precarious and vulnerable first few days, weeks, months to follow. Can make a really enormous difference. Postpartum Stress Center is another organization similar to PSI, Postpartum Support International, based out of the US. Again, similar offerings and resources as PSI, wonderful hub and source of information. The PINA app is one of my favorites. It's new, and if you haven't heard of it, it was designed to sort of replicate a dating app, but it's for women and moms who want to connect, not just with any women and moms, but with like-minded women and moms. So really about building communities, building villages, helping moms to not feel so isolated, really connecting to your people. So many amazing Facebook and moms groups. I wish I could list them all here, but I do have lists of them. If anybody is interested, please do connect with me. There are groups for women who are pregnant and delivering during the pandemic, who are expecting this summer. There are groups for moms who have experienced birth trauma, moms who have experienced loss. I mean, I'm sure you're all familiar with Facebook. You know how specific some of these groups get, but it really is amazing what's out there. Again, another wonderful way to build communities, especially as we have these restrictions imposed on us right now during COVID-19, and we can't always get out and see each other in person. And then this last one I want to touch on is really important and very hopeful and positive, and a huge piece of good news. The Perinatal Mental Health Collaborative, again, you can find that page on Facebook just by plugging that in. Links to research, studies, support, and advocacy. And so before, when we were talking about how we don't have universal screening in Canada, this group is lobbying for exactly that. It was started by 2 moms in Barrie who wanted to see change in this area. And so they have created this collaborative. We just celebrated World Maternal Mental Health Day on May 6th, and they put out some wonderful resources and information. It's an absolute hub of activity. If anybody is interested in advocacy work, this is a wonderful place to connect with. And they as well, on their page, are constantly posting links to support groups, to weekly chats, just to all kinds of sort of community building activities for moms and women. So definitely worth checking them out. And I wanted to, as our last video, just show you a little bit of the work they're doing. I won't show the whole thing because it's quite lengthy, but just to give you a little taste of the good work that they're doing. And I will also just mention, because I think I forgot to before, that as we celebrated World Maternal Mental Health Day, as we're calling for this universal screening and these measures to be in place, unfortunately, this year, our Premier and Prime Minister did not recognize Maternal Mental Health Day in Canada, even though this is an event that happens annually all over the world. So there were petitions presented. Some MPs are on board with lobbying efforts, and you'll see a little bit of that in the video clip. But just to say that we're not there yet, but there is some really solid positive momentum going forward on this stuff, which is very exciting. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and stop talking and share this last video with you.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever. Now more than ever. We need to create and we need to implement a perinatal mental health strategy.
Oh, sorry, I don't know why it stopped. Okay. Okay, I'll just stop share and try it one more time because it is a really good video. I don't know why it paused like that. That's strange. Technology throws us these weird curveballs. Okay, we'll try one more time. Sorry guys, just bear with me one more moment because it really is worth watching if we can get it going here. Sometimes Facebook does really weird things, I find. Okay.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever, we need to create and we need to implement a perinatal mental health strategy so that no other mother, no other family has to experience what I did.
Mental health is the most common obstetrical complication, with 1 in 5 mothers and 1 in 10 fathers experiencing anxiety and depression in the pregnancy and postpartum time.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jody Poliski. I'm a neuroscientist, therapist, and a mom. Now more than ever, we need support for those moms during pregnancy and the postpartum period to support their mental health as they transition during this difficult time.
I think what I'm struggling with, I might cry. But it's really weird to not to even think that, okay, my mom can't come with me. But it's just sad, like she can't even visit me when I'm here. Like that's not for sure not.
Hi, this is Morag from North Vancouver, BC, and my message to new parents is that whatever emotions you may be feeling right now are real and valid and honored.
I struggled with depression for a good 9 to 10 months after my son was born. I felt ashamed and didn't know how to cope or process my very scary thoughts and feelings. I am on the road to recovery, but I still struggle with depression some days.
Hi, my name is Christine, and I'm from Strathmore, Alberta.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Weston. I'm from Barrie, Ontario.
Hi, my name is Kayla Bell. I'm reaching out from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Hi, I'm Nikita from Victoria, BC.
Hello, my name is Tammy Hales, and I am the founder of Black Moms Connection here in Toronto. Typically, Black maternal mental health matters to me because access to services and supports is less than for us as well. And we need everyone in the community to be whole and healthy.
I'm Heather McPherson, Member of Parliament for Edmonton Strathcona. I was proud to sponsor the petition calling on the government to implement universal testing and treatment for all moms and dads during the pregnancy and perinatal period.
My name is Jill Dunlop, Ontario's Associate Minister of Women and Children's Issues. May 6th is World Maternal Mental Health Day, raising awareness about the challenges postpartum mothers face and how we can better support them. As a mother to 3 wonderful daughters, I know how important it is to have support from family and friends during the postpartum period.
Hi, this is Patula Karpuche, MPP for Parkdale Hyde Park and the proud author of a bill calling on the Ontario government to conduct a comprehensive review of maternal mental health and prepare a provincial framework and action plan.
Definitely.
I'm just going to pass this guy for a minute because if I go to the 5-minute mark, there's a couple other voices here that are really nice to hear.
Postpartum anxiety and postpartum PTSD.
Hello, my name is Juno Rinaldi and I play Frankie Coyne on the show Working Moms right now. And I just wanted to reach out and speak about why maternal health matters more than ever right now.
Hi, Sarah McVie. You know me from my role as Val Zielinski, the Mommy and Me leader on Working Moms. I haven't made one myself, but I've seen my sister do it 3 times, and I was right there by her side. Even with all the support in the world, it is exhausting and heroic what you're doing. We need to support you. We need lots and lots of support for maternal mental health.
When I had my second son, I had postpartum depression and anxiety, and it was incredibly, incredibly challenging because I'd already had a baby and I should know how to do it. And I should just get up on my feet and off I go again. And it was a very, very challenging time for me, for my husband, for our family nucleus.
I was diagnosed with postpartum anxiety with intrusive, obsessive, compulsive thoughts. with that came one of the hardest times of my life. Every day was an uphill battle.
And during these uncertain times of COVID-19, the additional pressures placed on families having babies is tremendous.
Okay, so we'll just stop there, but that entire video is on their Facebook page, if anybody's interested in checking out the whole thing. But as you can see, here in Canada, there is a lot going on to change the stigma, to change you know, the fact that women are being missed, to change the fact that we're not screening as we need to be, and so it's inspiring to see that. Okay, so that was actually, no, that was not all the slides. Let me go back. It was almost all the slides. Okay, so right, so we've been focusing on maternal mental health, talked about perinatal mental health specifically, but really so much of my conversations in the last few months with all the women that I see is about how do we stay well? How do we stay well, stay grounded, care for ourselves during a time of such heightened stress and anxiety, right? And I talk with a lot of women about self-care, how self-care isn't a privilege. You know, it's more than a day at the spa or a manicure. True self-care is essential for our health and emotional well-being. How we can build our circles of support, 4 kinds of support, being emotional, practical, professional, and community support. And how can we build those teams so that we have a strong circle around us to help us through. And how can we reach out for help? So sisterhood is powerful, and the motherhood is powerful as well. And when we come together in communities like this one, really amazing things happen. So again, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, and love to have a chat, to have a little discussion in our last few minutes here. And I don't know, Kristen, if, oh, I think I can actually see the chats, can I? Let's see. Okay.
Oh, that was great, Cree. I've unmuted everyone, and you have muted yourself, but if you'd like to ask a question or ask a question via the chat, please feel free to do so.
And it doesn't have to be a question. If there was anything that you saw that resonated with you, anything that, you know, that you liked, that you were wondering about, anything you want to dip into a little further, because in 45 minutes is not a long time to really sort of get into the scope of some of these concerns. So it was really kind of a quick overview. So
Cree, can I ask a question? I mean, if in seeing women who are really more, as you say, on the anxiety side than on the depression, which you know, it seems to be a little bit underdiagnosed or under-identified, are there some really good resources that you point them towards right away, like 1 or 2 that I'm thinking about? Friends, if I could send them some stuff, what would you say about that?
So are you referring to during the perinatal period specifically?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. So again, a wonderful starting place just to gather some information and to bring other people into the mix too, whether that's partners or other loved ones or friends, is the Postpartum Support International. The one that I talked about earlier and where we saw the public service announcement. So just going to that website, Postpartum Support International, PSI for short, or the Postpartum Stress Center. Those are really amazing, amazing sources of information, and there's tons of material there to download. One of my favorite tools that I like to use with women who are expecting is available on that site, PSI, and it's called the Postpartum Pact. So it's essentially a series of questions and conversation starters to open up communication and dialogue with partners, with family, with loved ones before baby arrives to talk about some of these things, how things might be, the warning signs that people can look for. How are they going to know how are people going to know I'm not okay, right? So doing that planning piece and really previewing that before we get to the postpartum period. So there's all kinds of tools like that on the PSI site, which is a great place to start.
Cree, that's awesome. And thinking about the number of women we see before they have babies who even do some education and preparation for birth. I mean, that should be something that's in it. That's awesome.
Absolutely. It's so important to do that preparation and planning piece. And of course, planning helps us to feel a lot more comfortable and secure when we know what to expect. And of course, there's so many pieces of pregnancy and postpartum and raising a baby that we can't control. And yet there is a fair bit, that we can plan for and we can prepare for. And often that helps us to feel a lot better and a lot more in control. So there's a question here. During pregnancy and postpartum, I often heard about the extreme symptoms of PPD. So while pregnant with my second child and I was experiencing feelings of rage and anger, I didn't speak up. I found myself punching walls and breaking things. Does this sound like a symptom of what you're talking about? Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this question. I'm so glad that you did. And this is so extremely common. And when women do experience those feelings of anger or rage in the perinatal period, often we experience shame alongside those feelings. I think as women in our society, we're taught to accommodate, we're taught to help, sometimes we're silenced, right? And so when women experience anger or rage, as a result of an enormous amount of stress and often exhaustion that comes, of course, with parenting. And we don't have a space to put that or a way to process that, or we don't have likely the support that we really need. That can come out certainly as those really severe symptoms. And it can be scary. And then we can feel ashamed, that we have lost our control. So again, this is such a key area, and I'm so glad that you asked this question. And it is definitely an area that we need to open up. We need to talk more about, and it is a symptom, absolutely, of postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression. So I hope that addressed the question. And there's another one. It's great to start seeing and hearing this discussion covering during pregnancy. The postpartum period has lots of focus, but being able to build tools and strategies before the baby comes may help reduce the postpartum challenges. Just wanted to say that it's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely, I agree. And, I'm passionate about opening up the dialogue and discussion, and let's just be real and talk to each other about what it's really like. So when we get to the other side, right, after delivery and we're raising our little ones, we have some idea of what to expect, right? So that we can talk about not just the joys of motherhood, but also the tough spots, the things that happen that we didn't expect, right? What happens when I'm not connecting with baby? What happens when I don't feel the way that I thought I'd feel or the way that I should feel? All those mommy myths are really activated again. And so one of the most powerful ways that we can break through this stigma is to have conversations just like this, right? And not to be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I'm not okay, and it's okay to not be okay. Yeah.
It's Kristen again. I really also like the 4 kinds of support. And I'm thinking about when I had my kids or when my friends have my kids, having even that conversation. And it was emotional, practical, professional, and community, right?
Absolutely. Good memory. Yes, absolutely. And this is a lot of this comes into my work with women a lot, especially during pregnancy. So can we use those 4 forms of support to really get specific around planning? And we have tools, we have pregnancy planners and postpartum planners, so we can really put these things down on paper. Who are my emotional supports? Who am I going to go to who will validate me as mom, right? Or mom to be as the woman at the center of this. Who can I go to be heard, to be seen, to be supported? It's amazing how hard validation can be to find sometimes, right? And how hard validation can be to give when we're not familiar sort of with that skill or how to do it. So we literally teach caregivers, partners, friends how to validate and how to do it in a way that feels really helpful and powerful. So emotional support is, of course, huge. And then the practical supports, right? Who can I go to do all of the practical day-to-day stuff? Who's going to help me with meals or with laundry or running around doing errands after baby comes, right? Who can I call when I need something? And sometimes this might be the same as an emotional support person, and sometimes it might not be. Someone that we wish we could get some emotional support from, that might not be their thing, right? But they might be really good at the practical stuff. So we ask women, who in your life is really good at getting things done? Who do you go to, right? And then the professional supports, of course, who is on your care team, right? It's so important as women that we have a multitude of care providers. So we build a circle around us. And that circle may include our family physicians, certainly. It may include mental health counselors. It may include psychiatrists. It may include massage therapists, physiotherapists, right? Osteopaths, midwives, doulas, right? The bigger and broader and wider and tighter and stronger that circle can be, the more we're going to be supported, and we're going to know who to go to on our care team to help get our needs met. And then, of course, the community supports. And we've touched on this already tonight, but who are the communities that I can depend on? Who are my people, right? Who can I go to? How can I build a village or strengthen my village? And if there are gaps in this circle, how can I fill those in? And again, now more than ever, which was the slogan and mandate of that last video you saw, now more than ever, we've got all these wonderful resources and supports available to do just that we've never had access to before. So it can be sometimes overwhelming to navigate the system, to know where to go, what questions to ask. And again, it can be really hard to speak up, but the resources are out there. And that's part of the work that I do is to help connect women to the care that's going to be helpful for them. Okay, any other questions, comments, feedback? Just a couple of minutes left. Again, I really appreciate everyone for coming out tonight and joining us. It's a wonderful series that Kristen's put together, and great news that we're going to have a bonus night. So thank you everyone for coming. It was great to see you. Enjoy the rest of your night and stay well. If anyone wants to reach me, you can find me Cherry Tree Counseling online, Facebook, Instagram, website, you name it. It's easy to find me online. So feel free, drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And wish you all a wonderful night and upcoming weekend. Thanks again for coming, everybody.
Thank you, Cree. That was amazing and such a good talk. Makes us think about so many things as we prepare for maybe having children or have had children, and even beyond. I mean, I think some of the things that you talk about are just great strategies for life. So thank you again, Cree. And as Cree mentioned, we are having that bonus 5th talk by Dr. Cree Lambeck on Thursday, July 2nd. Anybody who's registered already will get the reminders about it, but it should be a great one. She's a urogynecologist talking about conservative management of incontinence, but she's just a lovely human. So looking forward to that. Thanks, Cree, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.